Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. It's Alan Miles here. I'm the NetSuite Sales Director at Eureka Solutions, and thanks for joining today's webinar on Solution 7 Excel reporting. Now, we all know that NetSuite's reporting capabilities are really strong, but sometimes we all just like to rely on good old Excel for further analysis and planning and producing reporting packs. So today we wanted to introduce you to Solution 7, which is a reporting solution which runs within Excel and uses a connection to your NetSuite data to give you financial reports, planning, budgeting from the comfort of Excel. So our customers who already use Solution 7 have given us great feedback. And we're delighted that today we've got Mike Lashmar, who's Group Finance Director at the Ageas Bowl, the home of Hampshire cricket, who will explain the benefits of using the reporting solution within NetSuite. So we'll hear from Mike a little bit later on, but for now I'm going to hand over to Simon Miles, no relation, who's CTO of Solution 7, and he'll give an overview of the product. If you've got any questions as we go along, you can use the Q&A option at the bottom there on your Zoom toolbar, but there will be an opportunity to ask questions live at the end of the session as well. So over to you, Simon.
Thanks, Alan, and I'm sure we must be long-distant cousins.
Probably, yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Great to meet you. As Alan says, my name's Simon. I'm from Solution 7. I'm one of the original founders of Solution 7 and currently act as CTO. In this session, I'm going to take you through our financial reporting SuiteApp that we simply call Solution 7. Just before I go into the detail about the software, I'll give you a couple of seconds about who we are as an organization and our history with NetSuite. We joined what's called the NetSuite SDN program back in 2013. So we've been working with NetSuite now for, what is that, around 7-8 years. We were Partner of the Year in 2018. In those 7 or 8 years, we've acquired, I think this slide's actually out of date, it's more like 550 NetSuite customers globally. As you can imagine, with the sort of the geographic split of NetSuite, the majority of our customers are based in North America, but we work with a lot of customers here in the UK, across Europe, down into the Far East and Australia. We are one of the most reviewed products on SuiteApp.com. In fact, I always think we're really lucky in that because we're working within Excel and because a lot of finance users are very passionate about Excel, we've got a lot of very happy customers that are very, very keen to share their experience of Solution 7. So if you do get a chance, please do head over to SuiteApp.com, have a search for Solution 7, read a few reviews. As I say, you should see that there's lots of people saying really great things about us. Unlike a lot of other tools out there, though, and this is most third-party plugins or any sort of integration work that you have to do, the implementation for Solution 7 is super quick, super easy. It's only a 1-hour implementation, and that's from literally downloading the software, installing, setting up, installing your licenses, and doing some basic training. And because the investment in time is so low, we encourage customers to take a trial. We want you to try Solution 7 for free, to take it through maybe a planning cycle or maybe take it through your month-end reporting, really kick the tires and try it out for yourself and see how it can help you. What is Solution 7? Well, fundamentally, we're trying to deliver a reporting tool with the familiarity of Excel. We know that you know Excel, therefore we've delivered a tool that we know that you can use, but we've got all of the power behind that of NetSuite. And to a certain extent, think of us as the arrow in between the two systems, where we're doing all the heavy lifting in terms of grabbing data and helping you find the information and present the information that you need from NetSuite. Why Solution 7? Well, I'm sure you've all been there. You need reports. Sometimes you need to pull in consultant. Sometimes you need to ask IT for help. What we're trying to do is to empower you as finance users to build your own reports. To use a sporting analogy, we'll be talking to Mike of the Ageas Bowl later. We want to give you home advantage. We want you to be able to build the reports yourselves, without a dependency on IT, to build the core financials that you need to create, not only on a month-by-month basis, but on a lot, maybe you've got a report that you need to build right up to the wire. Maybe you're up against a hard deadline, building out the reports that you need, but more importantly, the reports that your stakeholders need. With access to NetSuite reporting, so, giving you access to the reporting that you need, but more importantly, giving your consumers of your reports access to the reporting that they need too. Fundamentally, we're a tool designed for finance people. We're talking the CFO, director of finance down, anyone in the finance team that needs to build out financial reports, be it VPs, be it controllers, analysts, management accountants, the budgeting team, the FP&A team. And we have a lot of customers that also take that and roll it out to senior management, maybe budget holders, maybe regional reporting that you need to push out at a location level or a shop level. Again, it's all about delivering financial reports for financial people that you can then deliver out to the wider business. Let's talk briefly about some customers that we have. One of our larger customers is Pret a Manger. They do all of their store reporting and their year-end statutory reporting through Solution 7. So they use us to produce all of the shop reports that go out to the shop managers on a monthly basis. We also work with Médecins Sans Frontières. As you can imagine, they're a global organization with offices in a lot of third world countries. And again, they not only prepare their reports centrally, but they also distribute Solution 7 to some of their regional offices so that the core finance team can push reports out, but also it empowers some of the local teams to be able to produce some of their local reporting. We also work with the Royal Albert Hall. They use Solution 7 as part of their not only their monthly reporting, but also as part of their charities reporting. So they have to report back to the Charities Commission. And again, they use Solution 7 to help prepare and submit those reports. And finally, I promised that we'd introduce Mike. We work with the Ageas Bowl, Hampshire Cricket Club. Rather than me tell you about them, let me introduce you to Mike Lashmar. He's Group Financial Director of the Ageas Bowl. And Mike has very kindly agreed to say some really, really nice things about Solution 7. I say with my fingers crossed. Over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Simon. Oh, thanks very much. I guess, look, I'll just give you a bit of background first about the Ageas Bowl and talk about our move to NetSuite and how Solution 7 came about. And I will say some nice things. And I'm not being paid to do so either, I hasten to add. The Ageas Bowl, it's nicely captured in a picture. Actually, it's 180 acres, the site, and it's got lots of different businesses there. So yeah, we're probably most known for having Hampshire Cricket, but the bottom left mark on that picture is a big Hilton hotel, which we also run. And we've probably got about 7 or 8 other independent businesses on the site. We've got a health and wellbeing centre. We've got a BTEC college and all sorts of other bits and bobs. So we've got actually on quite a relatively small footprint. We've got quite a lot of things going on. It's quite a complex business to run. During COVID, as if we didn't have enough to do, we decided that we would move to NetSuite. We had quite a lot of legacy systems in place, and we used some of the downtime that COVID brought about to consolidate our systems and have one smart cloud-based platform. So NetSuite won a competitive tender, and they head and shoulders above the rest in our view. So we moved over to them. And in the latter stage of the implementation, we were introduced to the native NetSuite reporting. And whilst it's good, we felt it was probably, for a business such as ourselves, we thought it was probably a bit too complex and difficult to get used to. We wanted something that the team, all of the team could use quite easily with very little training. So during the implementation, the implementation manager mentioned Solution 7, and we went and investigated that. And it was, the difference was night and day compared to NetSuite's native reporting. We were first off introduced to a chap called Sam Oliver. He's our account manager, and he gives us quite a very personal service. So quite often I'll be thinking, okay, how can I do this? I want to produce this kind of report or interrogate this kind of database in NetSuite, but I don't know how to do it. So I typically would just email Sam, and he would either give me some training or give me some useful suggestions as how to solve my problem. So one thing that is really noticeable about Solution 7 is that personal service and the accessibility of an account manager to you to help you get things done. It is very much can do. I noticed Simon mentioned about the 30-day free trial. That was pretty cool, actually. Without committing ourselves to Solution 7, we could just see what it was done. But to be honest, after the first presentation about it, I was kind of like, okay, right, let's sign up. Because the presentation itself, the sales demo was amazing, and we've not really been let down since. In terms of the actual experience of using it, it's just an extra Excel menu sitting within Excel. It's really easy and intuitive to use. It kind of, if you're used to, you've got a moderate level of using Excel, you'll be able to build up formulas within Solution 7 quite easily. It uses the same logic, the same kind of menus to open the same kind of formula bar. So if you didn't know any different, you would think it was just part of Excel. But it goes further than that as well. It gives you it does things like interrogates NetSuite as well, so you can click through and it links back to NetSuite, and you can, for example, when I've reviewed some of the accounts this morning, I clicked through to see a breakdown of a cost against a certain GL code. I was able to go back to see individual entries within NetSuite and actually forward a file on to one of my team and get them to they can also click through the file and get straight back into a journal and amend it and correct it there and then. So it's a really, really easy and user-friendly tool to use. I mean, the danger is I could waffle on about all sorts of things, but I think hopefully that gives you a good summary in a nutshell of what I see as the benefits of Solution 7.
That's awesome. Thank you, Mike. And just to say, Mike is going to hang around till the end of the presentation. So if you do have any questions that you'd like to put to either myself or Mike, please pop them in the chat, or we might open up the mics at the end so that you can ask questions to either Mike or myself. Thank you, Mike.
All right, thanks.
Right. So what is Solution 7? So fundamentally, what we're trying to help people with is create great looking financial reports. We're trying to go beyond the presentation that NetSuite gives you and really empower you to build the reports that you need to deliver to the business. It's about your look, your feel, your colors, your logos, and so on. But more importantly, again, not only is it about the look and feel, it's about the complexity that you need to build into those reports. You make them as simple as you want. You make them as complex as you want. The most important thing is we will never dictate to you how those reports must work and how those reports must look. It's all about what you want to build and what you need to present. What type of reports are we talking about? Well, they're all the typical finance reports. So we're talking P&L, balance sheet, cash flow, anything for the board, anything that you need to do for the stock exchange. So our US cousins have to do something called a 10K and a 10Q, which is their SEC reporting. We do multi-dimensional reporting. So think more traditional BI type reporting, where you want to, what I would call this by that, do this by that type reporting. So by class or by department or by location, or any custom fields or any custom segments that you may have added into your NetSuite. Variance reporting. So this is what I would call this over that, or this versus that type reporting. So actual versus budget, budget versus forecast. You're not limited to just one budget. If you want to analyze 3 budgets together, again, you can. Month over month, year over year, again, very, very simple. Moving away from the core GL to things like sales orders and purchase order analysis. Again, all that's very accessible. More operationally, AR, AP, if you have any inventory requirements, we have an inventory report. And some of the more advanced features in NetSuite suddenly become very, very accessible. So things like multi-book. OneWorld, are you managing multiple legal entities through OneWorld? We have all that analysis available. And do you have complex currency analysis and currency modeling that you need to do? We have full access to the NetSuite currency engine and can report in lots of different ways that are not possible out of core NetSuite. We also do what we call simple financial planning. It's really hard to I always find it hard to word this particular slide, because when I say simple, we're not trying to be enterprise grade financial planning. So we're not trying to compete with the PBCSs or the adaptive plannings of this world. But what we are trying to do is to give you a financial planning process that you can essentially build around what you're probably already doing at the moment. So if you are manually building spreadsheets and manually publishing spreadsheets and then gathering them back in, creating CSV files, uploading them to NetSuite, if you're going through that process, we can help automate that process for you, because we can publish the spreadsheets, and we've got an integration that allows you to publish your spreadsheets up and into NetSuite automatically. So essentially what we've got is a templating engine where you build your templates, you push them out to the wider business. Then when you gather them back in, we can push them back up into NetSuite. So you're not having to do that manually. And obviously, once you've got your budgets in NetSuite, that's when the real power of NetSuite kicks in. This whole single point of truth that NetSuite talk about, well, you've got your actuals in NetSuite, you've got your budgets in NetSuite, you can now start to combine those together. And an example of a type of report that we get asked for all the time is, can I produce a live forecast? So a lot of our customers will budget either once a year or they'll budget quarterly. But, have you ever been asked the question to produce a live forecast partway through the quarter or partway through the month? And to do that, we can simply take actuals, budgets. In this scenario, we're running a report for June. All of our demo data is for 2017. So you'll see the theme of my demo is against the 2017 year. But what we're effectively saying is for January to June 2017, we can pull through actuals. For July through to December, you'll see we pull through budget. So it's very easy to build a report where you're mixing and match your data. And don't tell anyone, but honestly, this is no more complicated than an if statement. If the data is in the past, pull actuals. If the data is in the future, pull budgets. And I know you know Excel, and I know you know how to build an if statement. Right, let's dive into the demo itself. I'm going to start by showing you the financial reporting side. I'm going to build a simple report for you. Again, I'm not trying to show you how clever or complex we can be. I want to show you how simple it is to use Solution 7 to build your first report. And typically, and I'm sure Mike will vouch for this if we ask him later, you will be able to build this report by the end of your first 1 hour session with us. I'm going to use 3 simple concepts that I'm going to introduce you to build out this report. Firstly, I'm going to introduce you to something that we call lists. Now, lists allow us to grab data from NetSuite. So let's start a new, wrong direction. Let's start a new workbook and let's insert one of those lists. This is a list that we call a pop-up. And you can see here, by the way, notice we're just living within Excel here. So we're not having to take you into another tool, make you learn something new. We're just working within Excel. I'm going to insert a pop-up list of subsidiaries. You'll notice when I insert that list, we get a dialogue that will already be familiar to you. And although we've built this dialogue ourselves, it's designed just to look like the native Excel dialogue. So again, there's really nothing to learn. All those years that you've been using Excel, we're just leveraging that to help you build these types of reports. Here, I'm just simply going to click on OK. And you can see that we go off to NetSuite, we grab the data, we drop it into the workbook, and we give you a little pop-up button. Use the pop-up button to grab one of your subsidiaries out of NetSuite. And it's really important to note at this stage that all of this information is coming live and real time from NetSuite. We're not having to populate a cube or a separate data warehouse. There's no waiting for an overnight batch run to happen or anything like that. This is using what's called the NetSuite Suite Analytics Connect module to connect to NetSuite in real time. I click on OK. I get my subsidiary. I can insert other types of lists. So let's go for a column list this time. It's probably worth noting at this point. Do you notice all the language we're using here? So although we're within Excel, all the language we're using here is simply NetSuite language. Accounts are just GL codes. Account types, well, again, you set up your accounts, you assign them to account types within NetSuite. Budget categories, classes, departments, customers, and so on. It's all just NetSuite language. So if I want to insert my chart of accounts, I can insert here, for example, a list of accounts by number. Again, we get that familiar looking list argument screen. And from here, I can choose to populate it. Notice we've got this lookup button. that allows me again to go back into NetSuite to grab data straight from NetSuite. So rather than having to type it in, I can just populate it directly from NetSuite. I am going to type in the account, and this time I'm going to show you something that we call a wildcard. So can you see there I've typed in 4 followed by an asterisk? And what that is essentially telling Solution 7 to do is grab all of the account codes from our consolidated structure that start with a digit 4. And the wildcard is just masking off the rest of the account code. Again, I click on OK. And you can see that we drop the accounts directly into the workbook. So that's the first of the concepts that you need to understand. The second of the concepts, well, that's just bog standard Excel. So I'm going to build out my financial period simply using standard Excel formulas. Again, we're going to report against our 2017 year. And I'm going to use 3 formulas to build out my column headings. I'm going to use Excel's date function based on the year that we've typed in to give us January. And by the way, if your reporting year is different, say you do April through to March, you can start at period 3 rather than starting in January. If you do 443 type reporting, you can just build your periods in a slightly different way. Here we're doing simple January to December calendar-based reporting. So I can take that date and using Excel's text function, I can convert it into NetSuite's period format, and that's really important for the formulas later. And then finally, I'm going to use Excel's eDate function. Now, we like to show the eDate function because no one's ever heard of it. The eDate function is essentially the same as the EO month function. All we're simply doing is taking that January and adding 1 month to it. So there you go, the eDate function, brand new function you've probably not heard of before, that allows you to do basic data arithmetic. And then finally, I'm going to use copy and paste. Copy that January formula to give us February, and then take both of these values in column E, copy them across to column O, and there's our January through to December headings. So again, there's the second concept we're using to build a report. It's just simply Excel formulas. Then the third concept I'm going to introduce you to is what is really the heart of Solution 7. And these are what Mike referred to as our functions. So we've built a series of Excel functions that, think of them as a bit like Excel sum or VLOOKUP or SUMIF function, but rather than aggregating data that already exists within Excel, we're going off to NetSuite to grab that data for you. And just like any other regular function, let's choose this one here. Just like any other regular function, you get the standard function arguments dialog. This particular function here, we call our NSGL ABAL function. Often I just refer to this as just the ABAL function. NS because it's NetSuite, GL because we're pulling from the general ledger, ABAL because we're simply going to return an account balance. If you don't know what the function is going to do for you, notice you get a description down here telling you what the function is going to do. And again, for the parameters, notice we're just simply using NetSuite language. So again, everything should be very comfortable and familiar. Now, to populate this formula, I'm going to grab everything from the worksheet. We've gone to the effort of actually populating the work, but let's actually use those values to populate the formula. So for the subsidiary, I'm going to grab that from this cell here, cell C3. For the account, I'm going to use our 4000 code. That's going to come from cell B6. And finally, the period, that's going to come from our Jan 2017 heading or cell D4. Notice at this point, we're just simply using dollars so that we can copy and paste the formulas. Again, I can't repeat it enough. Everything that you already know about Excel, in most cases, will allow you to use that knowledge to drive Solution 7 reports. I click OK. First of all, we get an error, and that's because at this point, we're going off to NetSuite to grab the data for you. And then you can see here that for January 2017, our 4000 code balance is a credit of £1.8 million. You'll notice it's a credit because we're honoring the double entry notation. So income, we're looking at income balances here. Income balances are negative. If I want to show that as a positive balance, I can simply pop a minus sign into the formula. Again, we're just using Excel to do that for us. And that returns me a positive balance of £1.8 million, £1.8 million. I can now take that and copy it across and down. We get a whole load of NAs at this point, as we go off and grab the data. And then those NAs just disappear. And the numbers magically appear to replace them. And as you can see here, we've pretty much finished the report already. We just need to drop some extra values onto the worksheet. Again, going back to that part 2 that I said about using our Excel and Excel formulas. So I'm just typing in our total for the row. I can type in up here the total for the columns. I can use auto sum here that I set up on my ribbon to pull in the totals across and down. Again, that's just using Excel's native sum functionality. I like to then apply some border formatting. Let's just apply some basic border formatting. I also like to hide that first row of calculations. Often when people build Solution 7 reports, you'll see hidden formulas across and down the left-hand side, which help form the structure. And then we can hide those out the way just by using Excel's hide functionality. I also like to turn the grid lines off. Again, it just makes for a nicer looking report. And then finally, let's throw on a couple of graphs and charts. And again, if you know how to use Excel's graphing and charting functionality, you can very, very easily visualize your data, because we are pulling the data for you. You're just using the charting and graphing to show that how you need to see it. Now, this is where the power of Solution 7 really kicks in, because do you remember we inserted a pop-up list up here? Well, let's use that pop-up list and actually switch companies. So let's switch from, say, our consolidated view of the world. Let's have a look and see how our Mexican subsidiary is doing. I simply change the company, click on OK, and the whole report just recalculates in front of us. So you're not having to go in and out of screens to run a report and then rerun a report. You're not having to build lots of spreadsheets one at a time to report from different entities. You can just simply use our pop-up capability to pick and choose the values you want. And as long as you built the reports in a certain way, they will just refresh in front of you. These reports become your best friend over time as well. So for example, here I'm running a report for 2017. Let's say you wanted to change the date. You could roll it forwards. In this case, we're going to roll it backwards. I just update the date. And again, the whole thing just refreshes in front of us. So these reports become quite strategic to the business and effectively become your best friend. We also have full drill down and drill back capability. What does that mean? Well, any cell in the workbook, let's take this £2.5 million balance, any cell in the workbook, we can actually drill down on that. You'll see on the drill down menu, we get the ability to drill down by all of the standard dimensions within NetSuite. And in the new version, you will automatically be able to drill down on your custom segments as well. So if you've got different slices that you want to create of your data, you can drill down on those different slices. Let's take this £2.5 million balance and let's drill down by subsidiary. We're looking at group income here. We're looking at our consolidated income. Let's drill into that. And you can see that that balance there is actually made up of Europe, Mexico, and USA. Let's drill into this USA number, this 1.4 million balance. This time, I'm going to drill into it by location. So you can see I'm going into the rabbit hole here, and I'm finding my way through the data. This is really useful at month end. I'm sure you've been there before, where you've got a report, you're up against a deadline. Maybe you've got to get your month-end accounts out. You spotted a problem in one of the numbers. How do you find the transaction? This drill down is an absolute time saver when it comes to finding transactions within your NetSuite. Again, you simply choose the dimension you want to drill down on. For each of the different drill downs, we give you a new sheet in the workbook, and you can just keep going. So let's drill into this San Francisco number, this 670,000 balance. Let's drill down by class. And you can see we're just building up these new sheets across the bottom until we go all the way down to the transaction detail itself. So these are going to be all of the individual debits and credits. These are going to be the invoices, the credit notes, the journals, whatever you've posted into NetSuite, you can get to those source documents. And this is really where the fun just begins, because I can actually then go into any one of those documents. You'll notice all of our document references over here are hyperlinks. I can choose one of those hyperlinks, I can click it, and then we will bring up a copy of NetSuite for you. And when I log in, we will go straight back to the source document. And you'll see here, if I scroll down, if I highlight this row for you here, this is that 1,075 figure. It's actually dollars. It's actually a US document. So this is $1,074.75, which we were then rounding in the report and showing as 1,075. And you can now start thinking about what corrective actions that you need to take. If you've spotted a problem, You can post a correcting journal, you can edit an existing document. Maybe you need to issue a credit note against an invoice just to, correct some values. But once you've made those changes, again, it's really important. You don't have to wait overnight for a feed or, anything silly like that. You just go back into your Excel reports, hit the refresh button, and all of your numbers will simply update in front of you. Let's talk about financial planning. So that was the financial reporting side of solution. Let's look and see how we can use Solution 7 as a planning tool. I showed you this diagram earlier where we're using data in Oracle, in NetSuite, to populate a template that we are then going to publish out to the business for you. In this case, we're going out to the different regions. If you're using a tool like, say you're going to publish your data over something like Box or OneDrive, you can simply just publish them out to the folder structure and have your users edit those spreadsheets in situ. If you prefer to email the reports out, you can use email to send reports out to a distribution list. But the important thing here is you're only ever having to maintain one master workbook. And then we're doing all the heavy lifting in terms of generating all the detail for you. And again, if you go out to something like OneDrive or Box, your users can edit those spreadsheets in situ, and then you can pick them up from that folder and push them straight into NetSuite. And I'll show you the technology that we're going to use to push those values back into NetSuite. So here's a typical budgeting template. You'll see column E here. This is using our actuals for 2017. For the 2018 budget, we've just simply taken each of those numbers and using standard Excel formulas, we've spread the income. If you want to be more complex, if you want to get more complex than this, say you want to do some modeling and you want to apply variable percentages, or maybe you want your users to enter quantities rather than pound or dollar amounts. So you want to do like driver-based planning, you can do that as well. You build your spreadsheets to be as simple or as complex as you want to make them. The most important thing to remember, though, is that we're building a master template here. So this master template can be run against any one of our, in this case, any one of our individual locations. Now, it's this location cell, this cell C4, that is the power behind this particular budgeting cycle, because associated with that, we can create something called an automation sheet. So we have this whole automation section up here on the ribbon that allows you to run budgeting cycles, allows you to print or publish financial reports. Think of automation as a bit like a mail merge process, a traditional mail merge process that you might do in something like Microsoft Word. These are all the individual values that I want to publish that book against. And then next to that, we can start to define the shape of the output. So you can see here in this workbook name section, I'm going to put the first 4 workbooks into a workbook, the first 4 worksheets into a book called San Francisco. The last 2 sheets for Boston, I'm going to put into a book called Boston. For this particular automation cycle, I'm going to use my email address, but again, you can use distribution lists. You can send one sheet to one person. You can send lots of books to individuals. You can send them to groups. Again, you can pretty much set this up however you want to publish your books out to the business. We can also create something called tokens, and I'll show you how we use a token in a second. Tokens are really there just to help us use Excel formulas for parts of the process that don't natively support formulas. I'll show you a place where we actually use those formulas, those tokens, sorry. Now, if I go up to here on the ribbon and I hit this email option, you can see here, I can also send out a personalized email. So I can say, hey guys, here's your budget template. Maybe here's your monthly reports. I can personalize the email using those tokens that I showed you a second ago. So if you wanted to put individuals' names into that column and then address it to each person individually, you can use a token for that. If you want to use department names, things like that, again, it's really flexible in terms of feeding these values into other areas of the system. Once you've got that defined, you just simply hit OK. We go through and we recalculate the workbook for each of the different values. So this is the San Francisco, this is the Boston. For the purpose of this demo, I've compressed the sequence down. And then finally, we generate the output. You'll remember it's coming to me. So we've generated one email as the output. You'll see when I click on OK, I'm going to receive the email into my inbox. Now let's switch hats here. Let's go from an FP&A role, or maybe a CFO role. Let's switch over to being the budget holder. So I'm now the budget holder responsible for the budget. Into my inbox, I get the relevant emails for me, or the relevant sheets for me. In this case, I've got the Boston book and the San Francisco book. Let's open up the Boston book and have a look. That kind of looks familiar. You can see here, we've got 2 sheets in the Boston book. Remember, you as the controller of this process, you only have to maintain one workbook, but we've generated multiple outputs. So we've got a Boston book, two Boston sheets. Now, me as the budget holder, I'm the budget holder in this scenario. I don't need a NetSuite license. I don't need a Solution 7 license. This is just regular old Excel at this point. So I can go in, I can play with these numbers. Maybe I just need to authorize them. Again, it's whatever process you want to build. All of the regular Excel formulas remain dynamic. It's only the Solution 7 formulas where we've dropped out the content of the formula and replaced them with static values. You'll notice when we look at the San Francisco book, 1, 2, 3, 4 sheets in the San Francisco book. So I can very easily go through and review my San Francisco numbers. Again, I can play with them, review them, do whatever I need to do to them. Let's say we were running the process via Box. Once I've edited them, I can then hand back off to the finance team, and they can go through a write back process to get these numbers up into NetSuite. Let's have a look and see how that process will work. So how do we take a spreadsheet that looks nothing like the CSV import routine in NetSuite? How do we take those numbers and get them into NetSuite? Well, to do that, we have something called a mapping engine. And what that allows us to do is to define the shape of the workbook. Again, remember in my opening statement, we are never going to dictate to you the shape of your workbooks. They're your workbooks, you make them the shape you want them. All we would say is when you want to upload them back into NetSuite, they must be sensible. Things must line up. You can see here when I go into the mapping engine, we simply say, right, this is where my subsidiary lives on the workbook. This is where my financial periods live, and those are my column headings. These are where my account codes sit, and those are my row headings. My budget category is going to be this one here. And again, remember, if you've got NetSuite Advanced Financials, you can manage as many budgets in NetSuite as you choose. So if you want a master budget, a play budget, Simon's budget, Alan's budget, it really doesn't matter. You can have as many versions of the budget as you want within NetSuite. So here we've decided we're going to update this particular budget to a record called Forecast SM. Notice down here as well, we've also set the location. So we're not doing it just at the GL code level, we're breaking it down by location. If you have custom segments, you can budget by custom segment as well. And if you'd like to know how to do that, I'm sure the guys at Eureka would be very happy to help you with that. But again, it's very simple to configure Solution 7 to budget at the custom segment level. The only thing we require is you must have at least one column and one row, because essentially what we're doing is triangulating the values in the workbook to know where to put them into NetSuite. Once you've mapped it, you click on OK. You go back up to the ribbon again, hit the upload button, choose all the sheets that you want to upload. We connect to NetSuite, validate the workbook. You know, we're doing things like checking that the locations are correct, the GL codes are correct, the periods are correct, and so on. And then you can see we push those numbers up into NetSuite. Once that's completed, we create an upload summary just to say what worked or what didn't work. And then finally, this is the module, this is NetSuite's budget module that we've now populated with the numbers from the workbook. And again, remember, if you're currently trying to string all those spreadsheets together to get a consolidated view of your budget, what we say is don't do that. Just create a new budget category in NetSuite. Throw those numbers up into NetSuite as quickly as possible. Because the real power is once you've got those numbers in NetSuite, you can just build a financial report to get a consolidated view. So you're not having to string all those spreadsheets together, hope no one renames a folder, hope no one moves a workbook so that the whole thing falls apart. Just get those numbers up into NetSuite, forget about the spreadsheets, because once you've used them, you can either throw them away or keep them for another cycle later on. get your numbers into NetSuite, run your reports either in NetSuite or in Solution 7, and just save yourself all that time and heartache of trying to glue all those workbooks together. I want to touch very quickly on cash flow forecasting. We have a number of customers that use us to help with their cash flow reporting. This is actually a report that was built by one of our customers. I don't claim to be a cash flow expert, but just to tell you a story, we have a customer that was a high growth company with investors. They were burning through their cash. They were trying to project when they needed future investment. They brought in a new CFO called Tom. Tom was tasked with building a cash flow forecast to really demonstrate to the management team how the cash flow position was looking and how the cash would drain away over time. Tom used Solution 7 for every aspect of this cash flow forecast, but importantly, what he was able to do in this yellow section in the top left is Tom was able to build in different assumptions for the cash flow model. So looking at things like debtor days, looking at what type of deals they'd be winning, looking at whether they were predictions from the board or whether they were the sales guys' predictions, whether it included every projected new hire or only the business critical hires, and also looking at gross margin as well. What Tom could very easily demonstrate is, you can see here, this was a couple of years ago, that sort of in the November, December timeframe, they were going to run out of cash and they would have to go back to investors to ask for more money. The culprit was actually this number here, their debtor days number. And Tom could clearly demonstrate that by, almost by whatever factors they changed in the report, if they changed this debtor day number and they halved it, so if they got it down to 60 days from 122, the cash flow position changed drastically. Now, off the back of this one spreadsheet, they changed strategy immediately. They were pushing really hard to bring new deals through the door. But what the board didn't realize is that every new deal impacted their cash position. So immediately they started recruiting a brand new credit control clerk. That credit control clerk was incentivized to get their debtor days numbers down. And you can see here that if they got those debtor day numbers down, they were no longer going to run out of cash in the November, December timeframe. Yes, there was still going to be, an impact on cash further into the financial year. But interestingly, what they were able to do, by the way, they did actually go out and pull in a new credit control clerk. What they were able to do is to stave off their cash position. And at this point, they actually got acquired. So they didn't need to go out and get another round of funding. They were able to see themselves through to acquisition. One final piece of the jigsaw that I haven't shown you yet is we also have an integration with Excel's pivot table engine. What does that look like? Well, I'm sure you've all used pivot tables. What we do is we go off to NetSuite automatically and we can populate a pivot table really quickly and really easily. And again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to give you that consistent experience. So you can see here, you get the same list argument screen, so you can populate it with parameters. As you can see here, I'll magic those on for you. This, as you can imagine, this is just a slide deck. So here we've got our consolidated across all GL codes for the whole of January. And here we're looking at our authorized returns and our sales orders. You'll see when we run it this time, it goes into Excel's pivot table engine. From there, I can now start to choose different values. So for example, I want the account name and maybe I want the amount to come through. I'm not restricted to just the data that we return. Let's say, for example, I wanted to go off and pull extra information through. We've got this screen called the choose column screen. This is the one screen we're going to show you that is not a native Excel looking screen, but you get the idea. We're going off to NetSuite and we're grabbing all of the different metadata that's available to you, in this case on a transaction. And you can see that if I scroll down and go to this more information option, I can see all of the foreign keys that are available to me. Here, I'm going to pull through the location, and you can see here we've got the full name that I'm going to pull across. So that's the location name. When I click on OK this time, and again, I've compressed the sequence here, but you can see here, we pull the full name through into the workbook. I can now tick that, and I can drop that onto the canvas. So you can very easily see that I can grab almost any data from NetSuite, drop it through onto my report. And because I'm in a pivot table, well, now I've got the power of Excel's pivot table engine. So when I start to tidy the report up, let's turn off the grid lines again. When I tidy the report up, I can actually go into the pivot table analysis section, and I can actually go through and change the styles. So I can play with different styles. And rather than that sort of laborious approach of building every aspect of the report by hand in a very controlled way, what I'm actually doing now is I'm just letting Excel's pivot table engine get on with it for me. So I can use the pivot table to create the basic look, and then I can start to tidy that look up again automatically with the look and feel that I want to apply to my reports. So in summary, Solution 7 is about great looking financial reports. It's all those bread and butter reports that you need to create, as I said earlier, P&L, balance sheet, cash flow, and so on. It's all live, it's all real time from NetSuite. It's got the great drill down and drill back capabilities with graphing and charting. And as I said, the automatic report distribution, which not only can go out to Excel spreadsheets, but we can also publish out to PDFs. On the planning side, simple but scalable processes around Excel. Don't let anyone ever tell you that you cannot scale a budgeting process around Microsoft Excel. You just have to use Excel in the right way. We can create dynamic budgets and forecasts directly from historic NetSuite data and non-NetSuite data, because we're just pulling that into a workbook. Models and what ifs, because you're just using Excel formulas. Again, with the automated workbook distribution, so you can send it out to people that don't have access to NetSuite. And you can see how we can seamlessly write it back to NetSuite and then consolidate all of those different values directly within NetSuite, so you're not having to link up all of your Excel workbooks. And that is, in a nutshell, is Solution 7. Don't forget, we've got a 1-hour installation, 1-hour implementation, very, very quick and simple. Because it's so simple, we'd love you to take a trial.